In the western suburbs of Sydney, Australia, something remarkable is happening every morning and evening. White-feathered birds with bright yellow crests are lining up at public water fountains, waiting their turn like patient commuters at a bus stop. But these aren't people waiting for their morning coffee. They're sulphur-crested cockatoos, and they've taught themselves one of the most complex behaviors ever documented in wild birds. When behavioral ecologist Barbara Klump walked through a Sydney park in 2018, she thought someone had forgotten to turn off the water fountain. The steady stream of water caught her attention, but as she approached to turn it off, she stopped in her tracks. A cockatoo was operating the fountain, gripping the spring-loaded handle with its feet, twisting it clockwise, and holding it down with its body weight while drinking. This wasn't a lucky accident or a one-time fluke. The bird knew exactly what it was doing. What makes this behavior so extraordinary? These fountains weren't designed for birds. They require a complex sequence of coordinated movements: grip, twist, hold, and maintain pressure, all while balancing and drinking. It's the kind of multi-step problem that would challenge many animals, yet here were wild cockatoos mastering it without any human training. How did they figure this out? And perhaps more intriguingly, are they teaching each other? Before we can understand how cockatoos learn to operate drinking fountains, we need to understand the birds themselves. Sulphur-crested cockatoos are large parrots, measuring up to 55 centimeters in length, with predominantly white plumage and that distinctive sulphur yellow crest that gives them their name. When they're excited, alarmed, or showing off, that crest rises like a golden crown. Males have dark, almost black eyes, while females display red-brown irises, one of the few ways to tell them apart at a glance. These birds aren't just pretty faces. Inside their heads lies one of the most sophisticated brains in the animal kingdom. Cockatoos have more neurons per cubic millimeter in their forebrain than many monkey species. Their brain-to-body ratio rivals that of great apes, and they pack neurons at densities 2 to 4 times greater than mammals. This neurological hardware supports cognitive abilities that scientists are only beginning to understand. In controlled experiments, Goffin's cockatoos, close relatives of the sulphur-crested variety, have solved 5-step mechanical puzzles that would stump many mammals. They've demonstrated sequential problem-solving abilities previously thought to exist only in chimpanzees. One remarkable individual named Pippin spent nearly 2 hours working through 5 different locks, each requiring a different physical maneuver to obtain a single cashew nut. The bird had to remember what it learned, apply that knowledge to new challenges, and maintain focus on a distant reward. But intelligence alone doesn't explain the fountain phenomenon. These birds possess something equally important: remarkable physical dexterity. Unlike most birds, cockatoos have zygodactyl feet with 2 toes facing forward and 2 facing backward. They use these feet like hands, manipulating objects with precision that would make a crow jealous. While crows might be equally intelligent, they lack the physical tools that cockatoos employ so effectively. This combination of brain power and manual dexterity creates the perfect conditions for innovation. Sydney's cockatoos have been adapting to city life for decades, and their population has steadily increased since the 1990s. These birds have transformed from forest dwellers into sophisticated urban residents, taking advantage of everything the city has to offer. They've learned that fruit trees in suburban gardens provide easy meals, that wooden decks make excellent chewing material to maintain their beaks, and that humans, despite occasional complaints about the noise, generally tolerate their presence. The relationship between cockatoos and Sydney's urban environment represents one of nature's most successful adaptation stories. While many species struggle with urbanization, cockatoos have thrived. They've maintained their complex social structures even in the city, living in groups that can number in the hundreds. Their loud, raucous calls, evolved to travel through dense forest canopies, now echo between apartment buildings and across parks. Urban life presents unique challenges that cockatoos have systematically overcome. Traffic, buildings, and human activity would overwhelm many wild animals, but cockatoos have integrated these elements into their daily routines. They've learned to recognize garbage collection schedules, identified the safest roosting spots away from predators, and mapped out feeding territories that span both natural and human-modified landscapes. What's particularly fascinating is how cockatoos maintain their wild instincts while adapting to city life. When feeding on the ground, whether pecking at grass seeds in a park or investigating a dropped sandwich, they still post sentinels. One or more birds remain in elevated positions, scanning for threats while others feed below. This behavior, deeply ingrained through evolution, now helps them watch for unleashed dogs and approaching humans rather than eagles and goannas. The transformation hasn't been without controversy. Some Sydney residents consider the birds pests, particularly when they damage property with their powerful beaks or wake neighborhoods with their dawn chorus. Cockatoos can destroy wooden structures, strip bark from trees, and make short work of outdoor furniture. Yet they're protected under Australian law, and any control measures require government permits. This legal protection, combined with the birds' intelligence and adaptability, has allowed their urban population to flourish. The story of how scientists documented this behavior reads like a detective tale. After Barbara Clump's initial observation in 2018, she faced a researcher's dilemma. Was this a one-off curiosity or evidence of something more significant? When she reported her findings to colleagues at the Max Planck Institute and the University of Vienna, the entire research team recognized they might be witnessing something unprecedented. The team focused their investigation on 3 connected reserves in Western Sydney: Charlie Bali, Karila, and Nuragingi. These 250 hectares of mixed native vegetation, playgrounds, and sports fields hosted a nighttime roost of 100 to 150 cockatoos. The researchers identified 10 drinking fountains in the area, all featuring the same basic design. A concrete stand about 3 feet high with a spring-loaded twist handle that required continuous pressure to maintain water flow. 5 of these fountains showed clear evidence of cockatoo use. The rubber tops bore distinctive chew marks, calling cards left by powerful beaks. These marks weren't random damage, but concentrated around the spouts where birds had gripped while drinking. The pattern suggested regular, repeated use by multiple individuals. To document the behavior systematically, the team installed motion-triggered cameras at one fountain, then settled in for what would become 44 days of observation. They also marked 24 individual cockatoos with temporary, non-harmful paint dots, about 16 to 24% of the local population. This marking system allowed them to track which birds were using the fountains and how often. What the cameras revealed exceeded all expectations. Over the observation period, they recorded nearly 14 hours of cockatoo activity around the fountain, documenting 525 separate drinking attempts. The footage showed not just individual birds drinking, but complex social dynamics. Birds queuing on nearby fences waiting their turns. Some attempting to jump the queue, others hanging around to catch drips from the fountain after another bird finished. How exactly does a bird turn on a water fountain? The cameras revealed a behavior so complex that researchers initially struggled to believe what they were seeing. The fountains in question were not simple press-button designs, but required a coordinated sequence of actions that would challenge many animals. The most common technique involved the cockatoo placing one foot, usually the right on the twist handle, while gripping the rubber spout with the other foot. Some birds preferred to place both feet on the valve itself. Then came the crucial move. The bird would lower its body weight, using gravity and leverage to turn the handle clockwise. This wasn't a simple press, but a controlled rotation requiring the bird to maintain its grip while shifting its weight. The real challenge came next. These spring-loaded handles want to snap back to the closed position, so the cockatoo had to maintain constant pressure while simultaneously twisting its head to reach the water stream. Think about the coordination required. Balancing on a narrow perch, operating a mechanical device with your feet, maintaining pressure against spring tension, and drinking, all at the same time. Not every bird used the same technique. The research documented what scientists call behavioral variance, different approaches to the same problem. Some birds developed more efficient methods, using their body weight more effectively. Others seemed to struggle with certain aspects but found workarounds. This variation suggested that while birds might learn the general concept from each other, they were individually working out the specific mechanics. The success rate tells its own story about the difficulty of this task. Overall, only 41% of attempts resulted in successful drinking. However, the marked birds, those the researchers could track individually, showed a 52% success rate, suggesting that practice improved performance. When birds were rushed by others or had multiple cockatoos crowding around, success rates dropped dramatically. What's remarkable is the persistence shown by unsuccessful birds. Rather than giving up after a failed attempt, many would reposition themselves and try again, sometimes adjusting their technique. This willingness to persist despite failure demonstrates not just intelligence, but something approaching determination, a quality we do not often attribute to birds. Perhaps the most groundbreaking aspect of this research is not that cockatoos can operate fountains. It's how this behavior spreads through the population. Scientists are witnessing the development of what they call a local cultural tradition, and it's happening in real time. Unlike instinctive behaviors that appear uniformly across a species, the fountain drinking appears to be culturally transmitted. The behavior hasn't been observed in cockatoo populations elsewhere in Sydney, despite similar fountains being available. This geographic limitation suggests the skill spreads through social learning rather than independent innovation. The research team found that approximately 70% of their marked birds attempted to use the fountain during the study period. This high participation rate, compared to just 32% of birds attempting the bin opening behavior the same team had documented earlier, suggested the fountain behavior had already undergone what scientists call extensive social diffusion before the study began. How does a cockatoo learn from watching another? The process appears to involve what psychologists call emulation learning rather than simple imitation. Birds don't copy exact movements, but rather grasp the general concept. Water comes from fountain when handle turns, then work out their own method. This is similar to how human children learn, understanding goals and outcomes rather than precisely mimicking every action. The social dynamics around the fountains provided perfect conditions for learning. Birds would cue on fences, giving them extended opportunities to observe successful fountain operators. Young cockatoos could watch adults. Unsuccessful birds could study successful ones, and the regular morning and evening gathering times meant multiple learning opportunities each day. Interestingly, unlike the bin opening behavior, which showed a strong male bias, fountain use appeared equally distributed between males and females. This suggests different types of innovations might spread through different social pathways within cockatoo society. One of the study's most puzzling findings concerns why cockatoos use drinking fountains at all. Western Sydney has no shortage of natural water sources, creeks run through the reserves, puddles form after rain, and tree hollows collect water. The birds aren't facing drought conditions that would force them to seek alternative water sources. So why go through the effort of operating a complex mechanical device? The researchers tested several hypotheses. First, they wondered if fountains served as backup water sources during hot, dry periods when natural sources might disappear. But the data did not support this. Cockatoos used fountains just as frequently when creeks were flowing and puddles were plentiful. Could it be about water quality? Sydney's tap water goes through extensive treatment, removing bacteria, parasites, and other potential pathogens that might exist in natural water sources. Cockatoos, with their sophisticated cognitive abilities, might have learned to associate fountain water with better health outcomes. While researchers can't directly test what cockatoos think about water quality, this preference for processed water would parallel behaviors seen in other urban animals. The height advantage offers another compelling explanation. Drinking from ground-level sources like puddles leaves birds vulnerable, forcing them to lower their heads and limiting their field of vision. Fountains, elevated 3 feet off the ground, allow cockatoos to drink while maintaining better situational awareness. In a city environment where off-leash dogs and curious humans pose new threats, this elevated drinking position could provide a significant survival advantage. There's also a social component to consider. The morning and evening fountain gatherings have become social events, times when the flock comes together before dispersing for daily activities or settling into night roosts. The fountains might serve a similar social function to watering holes in African savannas, places where social bonds are reinforced and information is exchanged. Alice Auersberg from the University of Veterinary Medicine offers perhaps the most intriguing possibility. Maybe cockatoos simply enjoy operating the fountains. If you're an intelligent animal with time on your hands and no urgent survival pressures, why not engage in behaviors that provide mental stimulation? The challenge of operating the fountain might be its own reward, offering the kind of cognitive engagement that highly intelligent animals seek. The fountain behavior doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a broader pattern of innovation among Sydney's cockatoos. The same research team had previously documented another remarkable behavior: cockatoos learning to open wheelie bins to access food waste. This bin opening innovation started in just 3 suburbs in southern Sydney, but spread to 44 suburbs within a few years, Clear evidence of cultural transmission. The bin opening technique requires its own complex sequence of actions. Birds must land on the bin's edge, use their beak to lift the heavy lid while shuffling along the rim, then prop it open long enough to feed. Like fountain operation, different birds developed different techniques, creating what scientists call behavioral traditions, unique to specific neighborhoods. What's fascinating is comparing how these two innovations spread. The bin opening behavior showed a strong male bias, with males more likely to be innovators and early adopters. The fountain behavior, by contrast, shows no gender preference. This suggests that different types of innovations might spread through different social networks within cockatoo society. Globally, the Sydney cockatoos join an exclusive club of urban animals documented learning novel behaviors. In Britain, blue tits and great tits learned to pierce milk bottle tops to drink cream, a behavior that spread across the country in the mid-20th century. In Barbados, bullfinches figured out how to open sugar packets. In Phoenix, rosy-faced lovebirds use air conditioning vents to cool themselves in extreme heat, but the cockatoo innovations stand out for their mechanical complexity. Operating a spring-loaded fountain or lifting a heavy bin lid requires more than just learning where food or water is located. It demands understanding cause and effect, developing motor skills, and solving multi-step problems. These aren't behaviors that could arise from random exploration, but require genuine problem-solving abilities. The research also highlights how different cities might produce different innovations. Brisbane researchers recently reported cockatoos operating different styles of drinking fountains, suggesting parallel innovation or perhaps very long-distance cultural transmission. Each urban environment presents unique challenges and opportunities, and cockatoos seem remarkably adept at identifying and exploiting them. The fountain-drinking cockatoos offer profound lessons for how we think about urban wildlife and city planning. These birds are not just surviving in human-modified environments, they're actively innovating and adapting in ways that challenge our assumptions about wildlife in cities. For conservation biologists, the cockatoos demonstrate that intelligence and behavioral flexibility can be key factors in urban adaptation success. While habitat loss threatens parrot species globally, those with strong problem-solving abilities and social learning capabilities might find unexpected opportunities in urban environments. This doesn't diminish the importance of preserving natural habitats, but it suggests that cities could play a role in conservation strategies for certain species. Urban planners and councils now face interesting questions. Should city infrastructure consider non-human users? The cockatoos have essentially hacked human infrastructure for their own purposes, but what if we designed with them in mind from the start? Some researchers suggest creating bird-accessible water fountains or designing urban furniture that accommodates both human and animal needs. There's also the question of unintended consequences. As cockatoos become more adept at exploiting urban resources, conflicts with humans might increase. The same intelligence that allows them to operate fountains also enables them to damage property, raid gardens, and outsmart deterrents. Managing these conflicts while respecting the intelligence and adaptability of these birds requires thoughtful approaches. The research has implications for understanding urban evolution more broadly. Cities are essentially large-scale experiments in rapid environmental change, and animals that thrive in them might be showing us evolution in action. The cognitive abilities that allow cockatoos to innovate and spread new behaviors could be under selection pressure in urban environments, potentially leading to even more intelligent urban populations over time. For the public, the fountain-drinking cockatoos offer a new lens for viewing urban wildlife. These aren't just animals scraping by in human spaces. They're active agents, shaping their own destinies through innovation and social learning. This perspective shift could foster greater appreciation for urban biodiversity and the remarkable adaptations happening in our own backyards. The fountain discovery has opened new avenues for research that scientists are only beginning to explore. The Clever Cocky project, involving researchers from multiple institutions, is now tracking marked birds across Sydney to understand how innovations spread through populations and how individual birds contribute to cultural evolution. One exciting direction involves using technology to study cockatoo cognition in the wild. Researchers are developing smart feeders and puzzle boxes that can be deployed in urban environments, creating natural experiments in problem solving. These devices could help scientists understand not just what cockatoos can learn, but how they learn and who learns from whom. The social network aspects of innovation spread represent another frontier. By tracking individual birds and their associations, researchers hope to map the social pathways through which new behaviors spread. Are there key individuals who serve as innovation hubs? Do family groups share behaviors more readily than unrelated birds? These questions could illuminate the social structures underlying cultural transmission. There's also growing interest in comparative studies. How do Sydney's cockatoos compare to populations in Brisbane, Perth, or rural areas? Do different environments produce different types of innovations? As cities worldwide grapple with similar challenges, comparing urban animal adaptations across different cities could reveal universal patterns in urban evolution. Long-term studies will be crucial for understanding whether these innovations persist across generations. Will young cockatoos born after the fountain behavior became established learn it more easily than the original innovators? Could we be witnessing the beginning of behavioral traditions that will define urban cockatoo culture for decades to come? Citizen science is playing an increasingly important role in this research. Through apps and online platforms, Sydney residents can report cockatoo sightings, document new behaviors, and contribute to our understanding of these remarkable birds. This collaboration between scientists and the public is essential for tracking behaviors across the vast urban landscape. We've journeyed from that first surprising observation of a cockatoo operating a water fountain to understanding the profound implications of this behavior. What seemed like a curious quirk has revealed itself as evidence of remarkable intelligence, social learning, and cultural evolution happening right in the heart of Sydney. These aren't just birds learning a clever trick. The sulphur-crested cockatoos have shown us that wild animals can innovate, teach, and learn from each other in ways that create lasting cultural traditions. They've demonstrated that the gap between human and animal intelligence might be narrower than we thought, and that cities, despite all their challenges, can become laboratories for behavioral evolution. The fountain drinking behavior represents something larger than itself. It's a window into how life adapts to rapid environmental change. As our planet becomes increasingly urbanized, understanding how animals like cockatoos navigate this transformation becomes crucial. They're showing us that adaptation isn't just about survival, it's about innovation, learning, and the remarkable plasticity of behavior. For Sydney residents, these cockatoos have transformed from mere neighborhood birds into symbols of resilience and intelligence. Every morning and evening, when cockatoos line up at fountains across the western suburbs, they're not just drinking water. They're demonstrating the power of social learning and the emergence of animal culture in the modern world. The research continues, and new discoveries await. Perhaps cockatoos in other cities are developing their own innovations right now. Maybe the next breakthrough in understanding animal intelligence will come from observing the birds outside our windows. What we've learned from Sydney's fountain-drinking cockatoos is that the boundary between human and animal capabilities is more fluid than we imagined, and that intelligence, culture, and innovation aren't unique to our species. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of one of nature's most remarkable urban adaptations. If you found this documentary fascinating, please like and subscribe to support more content about the incredible intelligence of animals and their remarkable abilities to adapt to our changing world. And next time you see a cockatoo, take a moment to appreciate the sophisticated mind behind those bright eyes. You might be looking at one of nature's most successful urban innovators. Remember to share this video with fellow bird lovers, wildlife enthusiasts, and anyone who might be interested in the remarkable intelligence of these Australian icons. Your support helps us continue bringing these amazing stories of animal intelligence and adaptation to viewers around the world. Until next time, keep watching, keep wondering, and keep appreciating the remarkable wildlife that shares our urban spaces.